everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive with us. This time, we're going to be looking at something that I think a lot of people have probably seen at weddings. It's the tradition of jumping the broom. And actually, General, I listeners sent in this brochure. It's from a company called African American Bridal, and they make custom wedding brooms. And I have to say, I'm already really intrigued. Like, I know it's a tradition, but I have a feeling that there's probably a lot more to it than, what we see on the circus.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It might seem like a simple act, but jumping the broom, it really does have like layers of meaning kind of woven into it. And it's a real journey through history and resilience and, you know, cultural identity.
Okay, well, now you've got me even more curious than I was before. So where do we even begin with something like this?
Well, I think a good place to start is to acknowledge that the origins of jumping the broom are a bit of a mystery. There's really no single definitive answer. And to be honest with you, attributing it to just one culture would be, I think, a vast oversimplification.
So we're talking about a tradition that potentially, spans continents and has roots in, a variety of different cultures. I mean, that's already pretty mind-blowing.
Yeah, and it really highlights how interconnected a lot of these cultural practices actually are. We find traces of broom jumping traditions in Europe, in Africa, even in parts of Asia, and each has their own, nuances and specific ways of doing it. But that common thread is definitely there.
Okay, so we've got these kind of blurry origins, across these different cultures, but how did it become so closely associated with specifically African American heritage?
Well, this is where things get really interesting and where, understanding that historical context is absolutely crucial. Think about the realities of slavery in America. 246 years where enslaved Africans were denied even the most basic human rights, including the right to legally marry.
Yeah, it's heartbreaking to even think about, those times when even something as fundamental as, the right to form a family was stripped away.
Exactly. And, in the face of that kind of oppression, enslaved Africans found ways to resist. They found ways to hold on to their humanity and to create their own expressions of love and commitment. And that's really where jumping the broom comes in.
So it was almost a way for them to reclaim something that had been denied to them. To say, we may not have, legal recognition, but our bond is sacred to us.
Precisely. Jumping the broom became this symbol of defiance, this way to kind of create a sense of community and ritual within a system that was really, seeking to dehumanize them. It was a really powerful statement.
I've seen photos and videos of couples jumping the broom, and it's always such a joyous occasion. But hearing about, its origins during slavery, it adds this whole other layer of, depth and emotion to it.
Well, it's a testament to the resilience of the human spirit, isn't it? To find ways to celebrate love and create beauty, even in, some of the darkest of times.
Yeah, it really makes you appreciate the strength and the determination of, those who came before us.
Absolutely. And that's why understanding an historical context is so important. It really does transform how we view the tradition today.
So we've gone from these, kind of mysterious origins to this powerful act of resistance during slavery. What happened next? Did the tradition fade away after slavery was abolished?
Not at all. In fact, it continued to evolve and take on new meanings within African American communities as time went on.
It's pretty amazing how these traditions can adapt and change, over time. It's like this living thread connecting the generations. So how did jumping the broom make that transition from, that act of resistance during slavery to what we see today?
Well, right after emancipation, it wasn't immediately embraced by everyone. For some people, it carried those, painful memories of a time that they really just wanted to move on from. But for others, it remained a really powerful symbol of their heritage and a way to, connect with their ancestors and their history.
So it sounds like there were some pretty mixed feelings about it, like a symbol that kind of held both pain and pride at the same time.
Exactly. It's a great example of how traditions can be, complex and can evoke such a range of emotions. And as time passed, jumping the broom, it started to take on a new layer of meaning, I think, and it became more of a celebration of, African American love and resilience and cultural identity.
This is what I love about these deep dives. Like, you just uncover all these layers of meaning that you never even, considered before. And it really makes you think about how traditions evolve and what they represent, to different people.
It's fascinating, isn't it? And, as we kind of move into the 20th and 21st centuries, we see jumping the broom becoming more and more popular in African American weddings, often incorporated as a way to, honor their heritage and infuse the ceremony with that cultural significance.
That makes a lot of sense. It's like reclaiming a tradition that was, once born out of necessity and turning it into this beautiful expression of cultural pride.
Right. And, speaking of making it their own, couples today are finding so many creative ways to personalize the tradition, too.
Oh, yeah, the brochure mentioned custom wedding brooms. Like, what does that actually look like?
Well, imagine brooms adorned with ribbons, in the couple's family colors or flowers that hold a special meaning to them, or even their names in their wedding date, engraved on the handle. It's a way to really weave their own personal story into this, rich tapestry of history.
That's beautiful. I love how it's this blend of respecting the past, but also making it their own. It's not just a symbolic gesture. It's a deeply personal one, too.
Exactly. And it brings up an important point, engaging with these traditions shouldn't feel like, some rigid set of rules. It's about finding ways to make them meaningful for you and your partner and to connect with the spirit of the tradition, in a way that resonates with both of you.
So it's less about doing it right and more about doing it with intention and understanding. Speaking of understanding, I was curious about something. The brochure from African American Bridal, they talk about how important it is to, share the history of jumping the broom with the wedding guests. Why do you think that is?
Well, it's all about transforming the act from just, a visual spectacle into this shared experience. When the guests understand the history and the struggles and the resilience and the love that's woven into this tradition, it really does add a whole other level of depth and meaning to that moment.
Yeah, imagine being at a wedding and you're watching, the couple jump the broom. But, the weight of the history behind it, the ancestors who practiced it, the generations it connects, I mean, it would be so powerful.
Absolutely. It transforms it from, just a cute photo op to this powerful statement of identity and resilience and love. And I think that's what, African American Bridal is trying to do, help couples really embrace the full legacy of this tradition, not just, buy a pretty broom.
It's like they're saying this is more than just a decoration. This is a piece of your history, and here's how to honor it.
Exactly. And, it's not just about honoring the past either. Jumping the broom also reflects this beautiful evolution of meaning. It's gone from a necessity born out of oppression to a celebration of strength and cultural pride and love.
Yeah, it's a reminder that even in the face of these immense challenges, beauty and hope can emerge. That's a pretty powerful message that I think resonates, across generations.
It is, and it speaks to the enduring power of traditions, to adapt and evolve with us and to carry these stories forward.
Okay, so we've talked about the history, the symbolism, the modern interpretations. But I'm curious, what about couples who aren't African American but are drawn to the beauty and the meaning of this tradition? Is it appropriate for them to incorporate it into their wedding?
That's a great question, and it's one that often sparks a lot of debate. There are definitely some nuances to consider here. On the one hand, there's the issue of cultural appropriation.
Right, like borrowing something that holds such, deep meaning for a specific group of people without truly understanding or respecting, its significance.
Exactly. And we have to be careful about, trivializing traditions, especially those that belong to cultures that have been historically marginalized. It's about approaching it with respect and sensitivity, not just because you like the aesthetic.
So it sounds like it's not really a simple yes or no answer. It kind of depends on the intention and the understanding behind it.
Precisely. If a couple, genuinely drawn to the symbolism of jumping the broom, and they've taken the time to really understand its history and its significance, and they approach it with humility and respect, then it can be a beautiful way to, incorporate a meaningful element into their ceremony.
So it's about being informed and respectful and understanding the weight of the tradition that you're embracing.
Absolutely. And, communication is key here, too. If a couple is considering incorporating jumping the broom, it's important for them to have open and honest conversations with people from the African American community to really understand their perspectives and ensure that their approach is both respectful and informed.
That makes a lot of sense. It's about listening and learning, from those who own the traditions that we're admiring.
Exactly. And that's how we can move towards, a more inclusive and respectful celebration of cultural diversity. It's about appreciating the beauty of these different traditions while also acknowledging their complexities and the importance of approaching them with sensitivity and understanding.
This whole conversation has really highlighted how important it is to be, mindful and informed when it comes to incorporating cultural traditions into our own lives. It's not just about, following the steps. It's about understanding the story behind them.
I couldn't agree more. Traditions offer us these glimpses into, different cultures and histories and perspectives. They invite us to learn and to grow and to connect with something larger than ourselves.
You've given me a lot to think about. So as we wrap up this part of our deep dive, what are some key things that our listeners should keep in mind about jumping the broom? I think for me, the biggest takeaway is that, jumping the broom, it's so much more than just a visual tradition. It's a symbol of resilience and love and just this, enduring human spirit. And it's a reminder that, traditions evolve and they take on new meanings over time.
Yeah, exactly. It's like we've been saying, it's a journey through history, and each generation kind of adds its own layer of meaning to it. What might have started as a necessity, becomes a symbol of resistance. Then it evolves into this celebration of heritage and love. That's pretty powerful stuff.
What really strikes me is that this one tradition really encapsulates so much of the African American experience. The struggle, the resilience, the joy, the love, it's all there.
It's a testament to the power of culture, to connect us to our past and to give us strength in the present and to inspire hope for the future. And it reminds us that these traditions aren't, static. They're living, breathing things that grow and change right along with us.
Yeah, it makes you think about all the other traditions out there, in various cultures that have similar stories to tell.
That's a great point. Every culture has its own, traditions and rituals that have evolved over time, often carrying, these hidden layers of meaning and significance. Makes me wonder, are there any traditions in your own family or cultural background that you've always kind of taken for granted, but now after this deep dive, you're curious to explore further?
You know what there is? My family has this weird little tradition where we always eat a specific type of cake on New Year's Eve. And I've never really thought about why we do that. I'm definitely going to have to ask my grandma about that now. It makes you realize that these seemingly small traditions